Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session. We'll be talking through our TEC winners from last night and hearing some of their stories around the application process and the work that they'd done in terms of their application and what they could evidence. And then we'll also be talking a little bit about what's next for them as organisations. If you have the app, then please feel free to send any questions through and we'll pick them up in a little bit of a panel discussion towards the end as well. For those of you that were there last night and saw the awards being presented, it was a fabulous night. If you saw me presenting yesterday, my footwear has changed significantly because I spent a lot of time dancing on the dance floor last night. It was a very good night, so hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. So these, there was a range of awards given out last night through a really robust process of external judges that we had. So we had Jane Brightman from Skills for Care, for example. We had Steve Peddy, who's a previous DAS and works with LGA. We had a really broad spectrum of people that volunteered their time to help do the very difficult task, which was to decide the winners amongst those that were shortlisted. The awards that we had were Innovation at Scale Award, Service Transformation Award, the Partnerships Award, Up and Coming Innovation Award, and the Workforce Development and Culture. So what I'm going to do is just hand over individually to each of the organisations and give them 5 minutes or so just to give you a little bit of detail about what led them to winning their award and the great work that they had done. So the first person I'm going to hand over to is Kerry. Her organisation, Alcove Group, was the winner of the Innovation at Scale Award, and Kerry is Head of Customer Success. It's totally up to you. Do you want to take a stand?
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much. So my name is Kerry Robinson. I work for a company called Alcove. Alcove are a care technology provider. We roll out tech services across local authorities. We have lots of different pieces of equipment, but the award that we won last night was around our care technology virtual care service, and we deliver that service through one of our core products, which is a video care phone. It is a one-touch, easy-to-use video calling device, so it means that anybody that's receiving virtual care do not need any tech skills or the internet or anything like that to be able to access our service. We started rolling out virtual care kind of on the back of COVID, really. We felt that we had to do a lot of things remotely. Video calling becomes such a huge part of everybody's day-to-day life. And we thought, why not try doing this in the care industry as well? Appreciating that not all care can be delivered virtually. There will always be an element of hands-on care that's required, but there are parts of care that can be done virtually. So prompting and social isolation being another key one as well. So we started using our video care phone to deliver virtual care to individuals, and we have since won contracts with multiple different local authorities delivering virtual care at scale. We now deliver about 1,500 virtual care calls every single week, and we are supporting people with prompting for medication, welfare checks, making sure people have had something to eat, they've had something, they've washed and dressed appropriately, and also did the befriending part of it, making sure that people are not socially isolated. So we have rolled that out at scale, and we're speaking to thousands of different people every single week, delivering care to them. We have a team of human carers sitting at home that dial into the video care phones, the feedback from the customers has been extremely positive. They are able to get a familiar face every single week. They are able to have their care delivered at set times that are more specific than domiciliary care. And they actually some people don't want people coming into their property. They quite like the hands-off approach because it's just that gentle check-in. For those that are relatively independent or can do tasks for themselves, this service really comes into its own to be able to just give them that little bit of prompting, that little bit of extra support from afar, but encouraging that independence still whilst doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations again on your win. Brilliant. So that was our Innovation at Scale Award. Next up, we've got Carla, who's going to be talking to us from Delta Wellbeing. So some of you might have heard. Yesterday, we heard a little bit about the Delta project and some of the work, the fantastic work that's been going on in Wales. So Carla and her team won the Service Transformation Award, and she is the Head of Business Development and Partnerships at Delta Wellbeing.
Afternoon. Hardcore TSA people are still here at this time on the second day. Well done. So for those that perhaps have been here for a number of years, Delta have been rolling out a project called Connect, which was very much a proactive service provision, focusing on individuals already perhaps in the system in terms of statutory care, but also our main focus for those that actually didn't actually tap into statutory services, may not have any health conditions, and the focus there was for us to be proactive and preventative with those individuals, to actually, I suppose, capture them earlier on in the system, and to actually then perhaps delay those sort of their journey into statutory care. That project's been running since January 2020, but our partnership and the way that we work, we're a local authority trading company wholly owned by Carmarthenshire Council. So we're unique in Wales in as much that we are actually the front door for adult social care as well. So all those calls that come through to social care, we're able to support on a preventative sort of approach. A lot of our outcomes then are focused on community pathways, what's already within their gift as within their perhaps networks themselves, to build resilience to ensure that those individuals can stay safe and independent at home. So as I said, that project's been running for quite a number of years, but we have close working relationships with Carmarthenshire Council and our local authority, our health board, which is Howells R. And that actually allowed us then to work slightly differently by linking some of our community staff into the hospitals. So we have community wellbeing officers that are actually part of the discharge planning teams. That actually allows then for nursing staff to actually be able to do the nursing side of it rather than actually being focused on what actually goes on in the community. And we know it's very difficult actually as a hospital team to understand perhaps what actually is happening in the community, trying to keep on top of what's going on, especially across 3 local authorities, which is actually what our regional partnership boards are made up of. So our staff are able to continue to support in that sort of discharge planning, ensure that all community sort of services are in place. But actually our Connect project also then offers that wraparound service. So individuals that are being discharged home go home with a TEC package. They have the wraparound service of our response service, so that 24/7 service. And what that's actually doing is not only are we able to support and bring people home 5 days earlier on average when we're talking about that discharge, we're managing that flow through the hospital then to be able to support. And actually, yes, there is always somebody coming behind, we understand that, but actually getting people home earlier not only a benefit to the individuals themselves and providing better outcomes for them to continue their wellness journey back home, but actually it just means that our hospitals would sort of managing demand then, I suppose, on that flow through the hospital. The Connect package actually, because we are then supporting them at home and they have that wider wraparound service provision, actually means that we're seeing less of that sort of rotating door then, isn't it really, where individuals actually end up back in crisis in the community and actually going back into hospital. So again, we're absolutely making an impact then in terms of managing that sort of demand at the front doors. I think that has been transformational for us. I think we've supported over 8,000 clients through our Connect project across the West Wales region. We are dealing with hundreds of those referrals coming through from the hospital on a monthly basis. And there are obvious, it's not cashable savings, unfortunately, because obviously A&E is still required, paramedics are still required, all of that infrastructure is still required. But this is really about demand management for the hospital and ensuring that actually the capacity and the resource in the hospitals is used appropriately, along with our colleagues in Welsh Ambulance Service Trust as well, to ensure that actually we are picking up people that don't need that ambulance, stopping long lives and making sure that people are not dragged into the system. So I think I can probably finish there.
Thank you. Thank you. Some great lessons to learn from both of those. So moving on then, we have Colin. We have a Kerry, a Carla and a Colin. So next up we have Colin, who's the Programme Manager for the Digital Office for Scottish Local Government, and they won the Partnerships Award. So obviously from a Partnerships Award perspective, we're really looking for, in the process of applications and the review, we're really looking for organisations that are doing that outward open partnership working with both internally in their own organisations and outwardly as well. And I think that's one of the big takeaways that I've had walking around here today and speaking to many of you that have got exhibition stands, is that there's a lot more collaboration and partnership working that is definitely happening within the sector. So very keen to hear what Colin's got to say. Colin?
So I'm just going to take the headphones off because I can never quite manage to do this with my own voice working in the background. Thank you. As introduced, I'm Colin McFadden. I'm a Senior Programme Manager for the Digital Office. Our main programme has been in helping the digital to analog to digital migration over the past few years. And as part of that, as we've worked throughout the landscape in Scotland, we've identified a number of efficiencies and potential solutions, not just for the analog to digital, but for the landscape as a whole. And one of those that came out of a landscape review that we commissioned was to find a place for a shared platform for alarm receiving. And that is what this programme has been about. It's not a single ARC for Scotland, it is a single shared platform. So we started raising this in 2022 and went out to the entire landscape in Scotland, all the HSCPs, largest housing associations and the likes, and identified with them whether there was an appetite. There clearly was, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here at the moment. But procurement was done centrally through Scotland Excel, which is the central procurement body for public service in Scotland. We created a single supplier framework, and that framework was awarded in the latter half of 2023 to the Chubb Cloud Care platform powered by SkyResponse. Since then, we've been working on rolling that back out to the services across Scotland. As of now, we have 18 of the local authorities in Scotland contracted to the platform, and also Beald Housing as well as one of the largest single ARCs in the country. What that's actually meant for those individual partnerships is that they have a single multi-tenanted cloud solution that is available to them on a framework, that when they do onboard with us, they have huge amount of lessons learned and support from the other partnerships already in place. And they have our ongoing support in onboarding, in working out their own individual foibles, and in shared training and shared innovation. And that is one of the largest parts of this. There was a very significant part of the procurement which was aimed at innovation. Both what will the platform encourage to be innovated and what will they accept with the partnerships coming to them and saying, no, this is the direction of travel we want. So even now, as it's being rolled out, we're still driving innovation changes to the developers. We are helping them in their direction of travel with reporting, for instance, getting a standardized, not a standard as yet, we're hoping to go there, but a standardized approach to reporting and fields. And in the approach to all the innovative new tech we are seeing, and how do we make sure that that is coming on board. So this has been a true partnership. Although we have procured Chubb and SkyResponse, they have risen to the challenge as partners, and the landscape across Scotland is now pretty much all there as individual partnerships working with us. We manage the programme as such through a variety of periodic meetings. We have forgive me, I've forgotten the actual titles we use for those particular meetings, but we have meetings with the service leads in terms of strategy and where we're wanting. We have meetings with the frontline staff to make sure that the delivery of the product is working where it is going to be best suited for those who are actually going to be using it. And the direction of travel will continue to move. I think that's actually your next question, isn't it? So I won't go too far into that. The direction of travel will continue to move forwards with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. I'm also loving the England, Scotland and Wales representation, which absolutely I'm sure was not intentional, but it's great to see that we've got that representation. Fantastic. So next up, we've got Aaron, who's going to be talking about the Up and Coming Innovation Award. So Aaron is a National Telecare Programme Manager at, I can never pronounce it, so I'm not going to butcher it.
Give it a go. Why not?
No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna let him do it. And so they've won the Up and Coming Innovation Award, and I think that's a really important award for us as TSA. Is yes, recognising where we're able to do things big and at scale, and it absolutely is fantastic. But I think also having opportunity for organisations and projects that are up and coming, I think it's felt really important for us. So I was particularly excited as a previous founder in a previous life. I was very excited that it's a category that we do have. So, Aaron?
Cheers.
Please.
Thanks, Chantal. Everyone can hear me okay? It's weird not having the headphones on. Right, yeah, so TEC Cymru. I'm not a Welsh speaker, sorry, so, but I should really get that right. So, yeah, brief introduction around who TEC Cymru are, for those of you who don't know. So we are the national programme for technology-enabled care in Wales. So we're funded by Welsh Government, funded up until 2027. Hopefully that extends beyond that. And we've got telecare and telehealth as sort of national programmes with a wide portfolio of interests and underpinning that in terms of projects. Our main focus when I sort of came to the role in 2021, having managed Cardiff Council's telecare service for a few years, was to conclude a discovery report in terms of what the lay of the land was for telecare in Wales and what stakeholders wanted. Did they actually want a national programme, or did they want me to go back to Cardiff and mind my own business? Luckily, it was the former, and we managed to create the programme off the back of that. And there was kind of two themes emerging, as you can imagine, 2021. Help with the migration was number one, and number two, weirdly, was arriving at some form of consistent data. So music to my ears as a bit of a data nerd, but also I was able then to flesh out a whole strategic theme around that, and then subsequently was able to recruit from the Welsh telecare landscape in Wales with Sarah and Bex, who came in more latterly after me to help deliver against these projects. So we set about in 2021 migrating Vale of Glamorgan Council from a Tunstall platform to an UMO platform. So that was the first SaaS platform in Wales. We then supported Delta with their migration and then moved on to other migrations around Wales. Maintaining a lessons learnt log, ensuring that it was a consistency in our approach. Effectively then Cardiff and Caerphilly came knocking, so they were next in line, and we wanted to do something slightly different with those two organisations. So in the meantime, we've been working in the background on developing a Welsh telecare data set. So this is a standardised data set. So it's actually got endorsement and rubber stamp standards by the Welsh Information Standards Board. So effectively it's a mandated data set. The problem is it's the first non-health related data set to go through the Standards Board. There is no equivalency around standardised data sets in social care in Wales. So we thought we'd take a punt and take it through the requisite sort of scrutiny panel, but at the same time, there is minimal governance wrapped around how we actually embed that mandated set across Wales. So it's always kind of best endeavours. We'll work with services that want to work with us, and then we'll achieve our outcomes ultimately. So what we wanted was for when Cardiff and Caerphilly went live with their new platform, from day one, they would automatically have the data set embedded within that platform. So this is a same citizen record. So NHS number is the number one item of these 54 data items. So we want instances of the citizen record to look the same. We want all 7 ARCs in Wales to use the same close down reasons. So we're all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. And as Colin was mentioning earlier, it links sort of more broadly to what Scotland have done, is it's still a local ARC in a sense that the local authority or housing provider doesn't lose their autonomy to be able to deliver their service, but there is a commonality in the way in which they handle calls, close calls down, and then ultimately report, because that's the main thing, is having a concise, consistent way of measuring benefits going forward, which I think you'll all agree as a sector we've been pretty poor in doing up to now. And I kind of think one of the reasons for that is rubbish data going in or inconsistent data going in, and us not being able to kind of agree as a collective what a robust benefit realisation model would look like for the sector on the whole. So yeah, as I mentioned, we took it through a standards body, so it's been rubber stamped. The next step now is to apply some more refined governance around it, but the fact that it's in now with 2 local authorities, and we take this kind of iterative approach, we'll develop a sort of a governance sort of thematic around that. So do we need a version 2 of the data set? Are some of the items no longer fit for purpose? Do we need to mix up certain kind of definitions of the data? Now we've actually got 2 living, breathing services doing it. And what was quite interesting for me as well, specifically with this migration, was Cardiff and Caerphilly being able to have on one single 19-inch monitor an instance of the Caerphilly ARC and an instance of the Cardiff ARC, and they looked exactly the same. So they're able to kind of chop and change their calls, and just helps with things like DR, and then the possible next steps in the future may be reciprocal call overflow. For anyone who manages an ARC like I used to, 9 till 1 in the morning or 6 till 8 in the evening is really busy, really peak. So imagine being able to resource that on a regional basis or a national basis rather than just a local basis. In terms of embedding it across the rest of Wales, that is the intention now. So we wanted to start with the 7 alarm receiving centres in the first instance, and then move that over to those services that don't have an alarm receiving centre, but mindful that the majority of these items sit within the ARC, which is deliberate because we don't want them held on sort of siloed platforms that are kind of not within the connected telecare sort of ecosystem. Lastly from me, in terms of we've already uncovered some early insights with Cardiff Council based on some of the data items and having a cleanliness of the data when it comes to decommissioning of service users. So we took 727 people through a control group sort of setting. So these were individuals that had entered residential care in Cardiff over the last 4 years that did not have telecare, versus 297 people who did have telecare. And we've already been able to evidence a delay of 1 year, 1 month and 2 days for those individuals that had telecare. So I'm not saying telecare is the answer and that's kept people in their own home for an additional 13, 14 months, but it is definitely a part of that story, and we need to further understand and explore what that looks like. And I've actually sponsored a PhD student to start looking into that for us. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'll give you these back. Not that you can hear me. Great. And fantastic to hear. You might have veered slightly into the question of what's next with the PhD student, but we'll let you off. We'll let you off. Hopefully you've got a lot more to go alongside it. Fantastic. So last up, we've got Joe, who's the Managing Director of Carium, and they won the Workforce Development and Culture Awards. As I mentioned at the beginning, I will be coming round with some questions, so please feel free to drop them in on the app and we can put them to the panel in a second. Joe?
Fabulous. Big shout out to Colin for suggesting taking the headphones off, because it feels a lot more comfortable without those on. So I just wanted to start by saying that because, big up to all my fellow award winners, but I'm looking out into the audience and many of you are here to see your colleagues who've won awards. So I think what's amazing is nearly everyone in this session is a winner in some way, shape or form. So that's great to see. I'm going to start by just saying my name's Joe McLaughlin. I'm the Managing Director of Carium UK. Carium is an end-to-end product and services supplier. We're headquartered in Sweden, but we operate out of Sweden, Norway, Spain, France, Germany and the UK. And the UK is our largest market, which I'm responsible for. We've got 350 colleagues in the UK, so the amazing thing about winning this Workforce Development Award is that it's actually, an award for all of our colleagues, and it's an award for all of the fabulous team that I've got here today with us at the conference. So a few things to say really. I think what I'd say is we're incredibly excited to win it, very proud to win it, because it is really a ringing endorsement of what we're trying to do as a business and the way in which we as a company are investing in our colleagues and the services that we develop, but ultimately in the services that we provide to end customers. We support around 200,000 people nationally in the UK with monitoring services. Across Europe, we support around 500,000 people, so 500,000 people being monitored through Carium. But we're also supporting many organisations in their digital switch, and we've around 300,000 or so digital devices online across our company. So, on to some of the details. So that's all the thank you. So, thank you for that. So, I think in terms of why workforce development's important, it's not just about it being the right thing to do. It also makes complete business sense. So, it's really important for us as a business. We're ethical and that we invest in our colleagues, but we also invest in their personal development, because if you can invest in people and you can treat colleagues like adults, and you can bring, they can work in a respectful organisation where their contribution is valued, then that translates into them working better themselves. And ultimately, a large part of what we do as a business is we support people in life-critical situations who are at home, on the phone, connected through to our centre. And if we can treat our colleagues correctly who are doing those roles, then ultimately the way in which that translates into the support and the care that they provide to the people we support, that's really fundamental. So from a business point of view, it's absolutely fundamental to what we do. So that's why that aspect's important. I've talked a little bit about that investment in colleagues around personal development and training, but we've also invested more around sort of holistic benefits for colleagues. So having good workplace benefits, a good approach to work-life balance. So lots of colleagues working in a hybrid way, and we also make adjustments for our colleagues. So we're based predominantly up in, we're a national organisation, but our ARC, for example, is up in Blackburn, and a high degree of our colleagues are from the Pakistani heritage. They're just in the middle of Ramadan, so we as a business have made lots of adjustments and lots of kind of adaptations so we can support our colleagues who are fasting throughout the day, and we've made some kind of, working with sort of our colleagues in a structured way in advance of Ramadan so that they can have a sort of healthy and constructive sort of period through that. So just an example of why, we think those things are important and how they help and support our colleagues. So a couple of more things. So we have 3 values at Carium. So show care, act smart, be heroes. I like the last one, be heroes, because we actually think that a lot of the work that our colleagues do is really heroic. Sometimes they're talking to people on the phone during the day. They're the only person that person will speak to during the day. We have mobile response teams that go out and pick people up when they fall or they get into crisis. And again, that's a heroic effort. So we recognise that every week with our Hero of the Week. And we've also got recognition in employee programs around that to encourage that type of activity. So, last couple of points. I won't stray into the final question that's coming up. I think that whole process really of investing in employee well-being, investing in leadership training for our colleagues, and just, trying to be a better and a good employer to all of those. So, that's really a bit about our ethos, but that's what we're all about. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so we're going to move into a bit more of a sort of panel discussion now, and I just had a couple of questions to kick us off, and we have had one come through on the app, so thank you, and please do keep sending them through. One of the things that I just wanted to pick up on first was that, coming in to TSA, I joined as the Chief Operating Officer 4 months ago, and there was lots of things to be excited about coming into the role. But I think the awards night, iTech in general, but the awards in particular are one that it just feels like a really great opportunity to celebrate what not only our members, but the sector does as a whole. And I think last night just felt like a real celebration and a real opportunity to showcase some of that work. And it's been brilliant to have the opportunity to enable you to all do that today. One of the things that feels like a consistent theme across everything that you've said, and we've heard it for the last 2 days actually, is that it's not actually, yours was probably a good one to finish on, Joe, it's not actually about the tech. Yes, there's the tech, but it's not actually about the tech, it's about the people. And it's the people that either are the difference between it working or not working. And I just wondered, I know it's something that Joe had the opportunity to speak to quite a lot in what he said, but I'm sure for the rest of you, you probably have very similar vein to say in terms of how important the team are and partnerships. And I just wondered if anybody wanted to pick up on that.
I don't mind because
Yeah?
it's something, I've done talks before and I've said it. It's one of those ones where I say in a tech environment, it's not about the tech, and everybody goes, but that's the reality actually, and certainly for us, the tech is a facilitator for us to be able to do everything that we're actually doing. And I think, yes, it needs to work, it needs to be right. But there, historically, I think within our world, commissioners may have been, I suppose, driven by the shiny, the new piece of tech, and then that's going to be the panacea for all ills and it's going to change everything. But actually it's about the model and it's about the system. So what you end up doing is you might buy some very expensive tech, but if the model or the system is wrong, then you've just got the same model but very expensive because you've actually just put another layer of something in that's not necessarily going to work. So absolutely, it is about the people. It's important to actually support that sort of workforce development. They are absolutely heroes. I think everybody that works in this sector, and I'm quite removed from that front line, but it blows my mind what our staff and the people do on a day-to-day basis. And absolutely, it is about ensuring that wrap around the model and the people that are in place are actually able to do their job then. Because actually people that come into this industry, in this world, do it because they want to. It's very vocational, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
So I think whatever we can do to make it easier for them is definitely a bonus.
Yeah. And Colin, from a partnerships, obviously that's the award you won. So from an external perspective, how do you build those partnerships that enable you to do what you do?
Well, I think that's following on there from the comments there. My team will probably wince at this because I've used the phrase a few times, but the innovation in some ways wasn't the tech. That, it's innovative tech, it's an innovative use of tech, but the innovation was the collaboration and building the partnerships. So we now have essentially a combined collaborative tech landscape, telecare landscape, as opposed to 32 local authorities trying to do roughly something similar. Mm-hmm. So we have built that now to the point where, yes, they will come and ask us and they'll look to us for some sort of help with leadership, but more often we're finding that they're going and speaking to each other, from other ends of the country where 6 months ago they probably didn't have contact details for each other. So there is an absolute collaborative ethos there that is being built around that. So that to me is the heart of the partnership that we applied for.
And what do you think was the real, if you were to really pin it down to the sort of core catalyst to, you know where this question's going, if you were to sort of pin it down to what was the real differentiator in getting this off the ground to start with, and where was that decision and what did that look like? What were those early days of being able to make this happen?
I think the earliest one really was probably being able to get the vision signed off and agreed. That to be honest, it was actually originally it was one of my counterparts that started off the whole shared arc ethos. A guy called Thomas Ozers, who's moved on, but he had quite a drive to try and get out there to the partnerships, to government, and be able to highlight to them the benefits and the overall collaboration that would come out of this. So it was that first spate really of stakeholder management that he did that managed to light the spark. And from there it has burned quite brightly for us.
Fantastic. So we do have a question from David. Thank you, David. Question for the panel. What one key change would you like to see happen across health and social care digital transformation over the next 12 months? So a very nice, small, easy question there, David. Thank you very much. Does anybody want to pick up on that first? Yeah?
Do I need to take this off?
It's up to you. Personal preference.
It is a bit weird when you put it on. I'll stay with it. Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious one, I think, around sort of integration. I mean, I think, we can see the value where it's been done, where you've got health, housing, social care integration, in certain areas. Manchester have been doing it for the last 5 or 6 years. We just can see the value of that. So maybe the timeline, 12 months, is a little bit optimistic, but I think, some funding behind it, some drive behind it, let's kind of get it really moved on from where it is now, I'd say. Yeah.
I don't mind saying something on that as well. I think what we're trying to do with in Wales is establish an infrastructure that'll take it forward for the next 20 years rather than the next 12. If we've got every single one of those 7 alarm receiving centres in the cloud, if we've got a consistency in the data, so they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, NHS number is a key identifier within that. That is a URN that can span into primary, secondary, tertiary care, community care. We're onto something there. We couldn't do that 5-10 years ago because we had platforms that were locked down and siloed and sat on servers that you couldn't get anything out of. Well, we can now. We have the chance to get important data off that. So the technology-enabled care data set is treated as just as important as, say, or it contributes to what a shared care record, as opposed to just being sat there idle with no one being able to do anything other than act in a local sort of environment. So in order to achieve that at population health level, you've got to get engagement from the RPBs in Wales, obviously, and Carla touched on that earlier. They've got a really mature relationship with that in West Wales, but for the rest of Wales, it's lacking. It's still quite siloed and quite individual. And I think a lot of that does come from the inability to draw the data out and make sense of it as well.
Absolutely. And it seems to me from a lot of the talks that I've seen over the last couple of days is that that whole system-wide approach, whether it be what you guys have done or what you guys have done, it seems to be that the stars have just aligned with all of the right people with the right mindset in the right place at the right time. And where we haven't got all of those stars aligned, there's some great buckets of partial entities of that are doing, the same or similar things, but just not to the breadth that you've managed to achieve in your areas. And I think it's just having the right people, isn't it, in the right job that are open to going, yeah, okay, let's do this. We spoke a lot yesterday around risk and whether people are willing to take a risk and whether it feels like a risk. And I think coming and hearing sessions like this and hearing where it's happened just gives people lots of case studies to talk to say, this is no longer a wild idea of something that is really, really new. This is something that is proven, that has had real benefit. So it's really, really great to hear. So the infamous question that I did ask you all to hold back on when you were presenting was, what's next? So we'll start here and then we'll work our way down. What is next for your organisation?
So our virtual care service is growing by the day, which is great. So we want to look at that in more detail and see if we can approach different cohorts of customers, so not just focusing on older adults, but people with learning disabilities, people with mental health conditions. There's so much room there to support virtually. A mental health example, recently we had a customer who had really, really challenging behaviour, had 2-to-1 care to support with those behaviours, and we switched it up and delivered that care virtually, which was a huge safety benefit for the staff members, and allowed us to deliver care virtually, saved the local authority £6,000 a week in doing so, which was huge. But the individual themselves is now absolutely glowing with pride. He feels independent. He's just got, his care is being delivered differently, and he absolutely loves it. So we want to tap into more different cohorts, different customers, get more case studies like that under our belts. We want to look at working with local authorities and being able to deliver this as part of their domiciliary care offer, working with maybe reablement teams to see how this can fit into that reablement package. Also looking at other ways of using other technology that can support the virtual care service. So as well as being able to deliver the virtual calls via our video care phone, what other devices can we put in? Can our virtual carers look at that information from that data? What is it telling them? We can then be really preventative around the support that we're giving individuals. It can flag if they're not accessing the fridge, if they're wandering at night time, all of that stuff. Use that as part of the virtual care service and highlight these concerns and these issues up front and early before it gets to that crisis point. So that's our plan for the next sort of 12 months, is to really look into all those different cohorts and using different technology as well.
Brilliant. Carla?
Yeah, so again, it's more of the same, isn't it, in terms of what we're doing currently. The service is very much embedded in Carmarthenshire in terms of our sort of staffing, Carmarthenshire staff and the health staff. I think there are still opportunities for us to look at our focus has been about that proactive sort of prevent in that sort of lower cohort of individuals that perhaps are not already in the system. And again, that's going to offer us benefits longer term or further down the line. There are opportunities to do a little bit more that sort of proactive analysis, the ADLs, and looking at individuals and that other cohort of clients that we're actually supporting. But it's about those insights. I think our infrastructure is there then to actually act on those insights, because it's all well and good. It's a little bit, you open a can of worms, don't you, when you get told that this information, and then actually you've got to do something about it. So I think we're in a position where we've got that infrastructure in place to actually do something there. But working with our strategic partner, CGI, then there are opportunities for us then to look at that population health management, use the data that we've got ourselves, but actually integrate that in with health, our local authorities, third sector, police, schools, whatever it may be, and actually have that 360 view of an individual to ensure that you're actually providing the right help at the right time, but also to understand what their potential journey is going to be. So again, about that population health management, what's going to be coming in the future, how do we deal with these individuals, what's the likely trajectory of that, and actually then look at ways to, again, utilise what ultimately is finite resource. Health and social care are not getting more money. We've got to do better with what we've actually got. So actually this is about ensuring that our staff are able to do the job correctly, take away a lot of that sort of perhaps white noise, the things that actually get in the way. And having that 360 view is going to allow us then to be able to be much more predictive, be proactive, and actually have a bigger impact on a wider scale then. So yeah,
brilliant.
That's the plan.
Fantastic. Colin?
Yeah, so two parts, I suppose, to that. I mean, in terms of the partnership, as we discussed, and how do you grow that partnership? The majority of as I said, 18 of the 32 councils are already with us. The majority of those that aren't are those who have not long signed new contracts with their existing suppliers. So there is scope to extend as those come to an end themselves. And we've spoken to most of them. They're quite happy to look at and to have those discussions later on. So we'll continue to see whether we'll increase the number of organisations involved in the ARC as we go. However, I think the more exciting parts in many ways is what we can do with those who are already here. As Aaron alluded to, we have also been developing a Scottish data set. It's called the Telcare Information Framework, and it was launched by the Scottish Government last year, I think. So we're looking at embedding that into the platform. Again, having that standardised approach to data. But as services have started to complete the migration, I think that's our next step, is what happens after analog to digital. We have 7 authorities who are now complete, and several others who are certainly last 2/3 of the migration to go. And the first ones have completed have turned to us and said, right, we've got our safety net in place. What next? How do we innovate? And that's what we're starting to look at. So looking at what can we do out there? What is the art of the possible? Bringing in things like, they're in here, the Avondos machine, for instance, and making sure those things can be integrated into the platform, where they can go with that. So there's a great wealth of opportunity to innovate and take tech forward, not just telecare. And that's where we're going with it.
Absolutely.
I'll use Next iTech as a guide for this. So by this time next year, all of the ARCs in Wales will be in the cloud. Majority of local authorities in Wales will have the data set embedded. We want to get to 80% of dispersed connections to be digitised. It's currently at 60 in Wales, so that's could be higher, fingers crossed. And lastly, Carla touched on the ADL bit, that I sort of fed, but I know Paul Burney did a speech yesterday around the blueprint.
Yeah.
We've kind of done our own as well, and I've spoke to Paul about this, but we're sort of teasing that out, what that looks like. But that whole piece around kind of a wider virtual care, touching on David's question as well about pulling in health and care into that. It'd be great if we could centrally fund via support from Welsh Government a service to deliver against that. But again, using telecare as the scale for that, rather than starting cold at, say, like telehealth, where you go into health boards and there is no scale. Well, in Wales, 34% of people aged over 85 are a telecare user. There is scale. It's just the average age of a telecare user in Wales is 86. So how do you get that earlier on in the life course to start kind of moving away from the traditional kind of stigma of wearing a red button to be more around kind of multifunctioning wearable plus multifunctioning environmental? So there's something in that as well I think is worth teasing out with the likes of obviously Carla as a partner and others across Wales. So yeah, that's probably what I'd say by this time next year.
Okay, we're all here. We all heard it, so we'll
Hold me against it. Yeah. I won't be here.
booking a holiday, be in Spain. Joe?
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, quite a different point from me, really. So, Carium is an amalgam of a number of other organisations that have come together as we've grown over the years. So, Wellbeing, Centra, Elder Care, they're organisations that are part of Carium. So I'm really fortunate, and a lot of them are in the audience today here today, is that what we've tried to do over the last few years is try and bring all those parts of our organisation together. And we've got a fantastic leadership team who've been with us kind of through that journey. I'm relatively new, I'm in 9 months, but incredibly resilient team. And you have to have that really to sort of drive that type of change through the organisation, because bringing cultures together is really difficult. People say all the time, strategy eats culture. It's so true in a workplace. So we introduced something earlier in the year called Carium Conversations, which is just an opportunity for us to strengthen the feedback loop to our colleagues. So we're hearing from people across the organisation what matters to them, what do they want us to do, how can we make the workplace better, etc. Because ultimately that benefits everyone in the business. So we're really strengthening those feedback loops. So we're teeing up a few more sessions of those, but we're widening the kind of engagement from our senior leadership team in those conversations, so we can really hear back from our colleagues about what's happening and what's going on for them. So that's a thing for us. And yeah, like Aaron, maybe we'll tell you how we got on next year, sort of thing. So, yeah.
not making any commitments, but that sounds great.
It's a bit more ephemeral. Yeah.
And I think that's really, it's really not surprising, but eye-opening to hear that despite being an amalgamation of different companies, to win the Workforce Development and Culture Award with all of that context is quite a feat, because I used to work in a national care provider, and we were an amalgamation of purchased care providers that England, Scotland and Wales are very, very different cultures, and it's not the easiest to kind of meld all of that together and bring people who have joined an organisation with a certain set of values and then have found themselves maybe 2P'd over into a new organisation, and the management of that might have been very different across all of those different organisations. So that's fantastic to hear. So that sort of brings us towards an end in terms of our session today. I haven't had any additional questions come through on the app, but I just wanted to finish really with a huge congratulations to the guys and to our other winners last night as well. Had another 2 categories. In addition to that, we also presented last night our QSF assurance process awardees. So those that had gone through the QSF process this year received their glassware from the chair and Helen Loveday, who heads up that programme. And there were 11 of those organisations as well that were also awarded. So that was great to see that kind of commitment in the sector to standards and to quality. So with those guys alongside these, I think we as a core senior management team in TSA felt very, very proud last night, not just to see how many people have been here and how many people were engaged, how many people applied for the awards as well was really great to see. But then how much you all celebrated when you won was also fantastic to see. So thank you all for being here. And if you weren't at the gala dinner last night, then maybe we'll see you there next year. And hopefully you've had a fantastic couple of days at iTech. Thank you very much.